my Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1670 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Yes, we are open. An award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. Silverwax.ca. Use the promo code TorontoMike10 and save 10%. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Building Toronto Skyline, a podcast and book from Nick Iones, sponsored by Fusion Corp Construction Management Inc. and Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today, making her Toronto Mic debut, is Crystal Shawanda. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I am truly honored to meet you because I dove into your catalog of fine music, and you have one hell of a voice.
Thank you.
Honestly, what's your secret?
I don't know. I love to sing. I think that's the biggest part of it is I love to sing. It's always been my lifeline. It's the thing that makes me happy, and when I sing, I feel like that's where I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Well, we're going to, I have a few songs loaded up. I have brand new music. I have sort of the start, and I have something in the middle that I think showcases the texture of your voice that I quite love. So we're going to hear, the listenership will hear how you sound throughout this episode. But I just want to acknowledge that you are not alone. So I just want to say there's a woman named Cat Bird in this room, and that's her real name, right, Crystal?
Absolutely. She's the glitter glue in my life.
So how do you know Cat Bird, real name?
Well, we've worked together over at True North Records, where I was formerly at. And now I am back on my own record label, New Sun Music, which has been active since 2010. And I'm very blessed to have Cat Bird over on the team at New Sun Music. So she is truly the glitter glue in my life. She
glue.
She is. She keeps everything together in a fabulous way.
Okay. And she's right now, I see her. She's not on the mic, but I can see her. She's consuming a delicious premium lager from Great Lakes Brewery.
Delish.
May I crack one, Crystal? Since Cat Bird's drinking, I'd like to drink as well.
Absolutely.
Here.
Okay. See, that's the sound right
there. That's the sound right there. But you do not drink, is that right?
Not really. I just not thirsty anymore.
You got a Coke in front of you.
I do. I'm thirsty for Coke, but
I need
Coca-Cola.
Coke as a sponsor. You're telling me.
Coca-Cola Classic. No.
Oh yeah, we need to be clear. Because every time. So my boy just turned 11. What day was that? 2 days ago, and then we went out to eat, and he said because he's not allowed to drink regular Coke. You're drinking a regular Coke. We don't let the 11-year-old drink regular Coke because it's got too much sugar in it. But he's like, it's my birthday. Can I have a regular Coke? So. Yes, he got a regular Coke, and I said, back in the day, Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. Do you know this, Crystal?
Yes.
But that particular can in front of you does not have cocaine in it.
No, it does not. And I figured out I learned that you can't just say Coke because people misunderstand. Years ago I used to work with Doc McGee, who has worked with some of the biggest rock stars in the business, created Bon Jovi and Kiss. And I remember we were getting ready to do a show one time, and he was like, "Hey, Crystal, you good? You need anything?" I said, "Oh, I could show you some Coke." And he just looked at me kind of weird, and I was like, Coca-Cola, like to drink. Oh
yeah, because he was going to score you some Coke. Because that's how he rolls.
He probably would have. And he looked at me, and after I said, no, just like Coke to drink. And he was like, oh, okay. I was like, I thought I left that behind in LA.
I heard it's making a comeback. I've never, so I've got at least a decade on you. Let me do some math. I think I have more than a decade on you, actually. I've never seen cocaine. I mean, like I've never seen it. I'm sure Cat Bird has seen many a line of coke in her day. But like, okay, I'm not suggesting it. Like, the fact she's sniffing is because of that sweater she's wearing. Okay, but I've never. I always have people on the show, and I can name names because they've been very honest. But like Peter Gross from City TV or Steve Anthony,
right,
and John Gallagher, and they talk about the '80s working with their.
Yeah,
I just think it was like Tony Montana and Scarface. Like there's a mountain of coke. Okay, I've never seen coke. Like I don't think I'm invited to the parties where coke makes an appearance. Have you seen coke, Crystal? I
have. I walked into many places where just what you described of it being on the table, whether it was, with, people, friends, and then also people in the music business and working with other bands and other musicians. And myself personally, I have an addictive personality. So I just always knew a long time ago, made a decision a long time ago to never venture in that direction,
Smart.
The greenery is a different thing. But
that's a herb, right?
Yes,
like to
absolutely.
me, very different thing. And Willie Nelson's still, rocking in the free world.
Right.
Like you'll hear about a George Michael. You'll hear about somebody who dies too early, too soon. And it's like, oh yeah, they did a lot of coke and the heart doesn't like it. I never hear about, oh, that guy, his heart stopped. Yeah, he smoked a lot of weed.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
No. Come on. Snoop Dogg's going to outlive us all. Okay,
absolutely.
Crystal? All right. So I can't wait. You kind of alluded to your origin story, and I mentioned I've got something from the past, sort of like you're getting married. There's something old, something in the middle, and then something new that I've loaded up here. But where did you grow up, Crystal?
I grew up on the Weequahic First Nations on Manitoulin Island, the largest freshwater island in the world. And I grew up on all styles of music and surrounded by music, and I just loved it. So that led me to Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I've been living for the past 21 years.
And it's fair to say you drove from Nashville to be on Toronto Mic'd. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
I don't believe you. I feel like Bob Dylan here. I don't believe you. So Manitoulin Island, who are your inspirations? Like, I'm just curious about the origin story, because you signed to Nashville, RCA Nashville in 2007. I'm going to play your first single in a moment, which people will probably recognize. But who are the inspirations for Crystal Shawanda that made you think you could be a country music superstar?
All the best ones. My parents listened to really old country music, like Loretta Lynn, Patsy Cline, Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, and my oldest brother listened to blues music like B.B. King, Muddy Waters, and Etta James, and then my other brother listened to Steve Earle, Dwight Yoakam, Tom Petty, and AC/DC, and so I had this really good education in music, and as far as my family was concerned, it wasn't a particular genre that was our favorite. It was just there's good music and there's bad music. It doesn't matter what genre it is.
Well, you threw AC/DC in there, so you're all over the map.
I did, yeah. AC/DC, that's who taught me how to perfect the pinch in my voice.
Is that that's who gets credit for that?
Yeah, some of it. And then I also learned from Conway Twitty how to handle that pinch and that gravel in the voice. So I always went to different vocalists. These were my teachers, my first mentors, and they helped me learn how to control these different parts and textures of my voice.
So I want to speak to the texture. And again, I feel like maybe I should be having this conversation after we play a little of your music for people who aren't familiar. They can hear what I hear. I hear ready for the highest compliment I've ever paid a singer. Are you ready?
Sure.
Are you sitting down?
I'm sitting.
It's Joplin-esque.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like that's the highest praise a singer can receive.
I get that a lot. Like when we do, sometimes when I'm off the road and I'm home in Nashville, we do a residency gig at a blues bar called Bourbon Street Blues and Boogie Bar. It's over on Printers Alley. And so we like to play there. When we play there, I don't do originals. I do straight up all my favorite covers. And it's just a chance for me to hang out. It's not work. That's basically my social life. And I get to hang out with my friends, musicians who are my friends, and we play our favorite favorite songs. And so every time people come in the club, they always request Janis Joplin. And I always tell them, okay, I'll do Joplin for you. I said, but you got to wait a little bit. I say, you can't pull out Joplin too early because, once you go Joplin, you can't go back, And I always tell them,
closer.
Next thing you know, I'll be sitting over at the bar finishing off the Southern Comfort. And when you guys are all done, I'll just be getting started. So, and then it makes them stick around longer and they wait for it. And I do a mean Joplin.
I'll bet. What's your go-to Joplin jam?
Piece of My Heart. If I want to really work that tip jug, Piece of My Heart.
Well, that's a winner right there. Okay. I discovered that song. Again, I said I had over a decade on you, but as a kid, there was I don't know if it's Molson or Labatt's, one of the giant beer companies, licensed that song for a commercial. So I originally knew Piece of My Heart as like a beer ad. Like this is my intro to Janis Joplin, essentially. But now that I've had 10 minutes of chatting with you and you're in my headphones here, I can hear the texture in your speaking voice. Like it's quite remarkable. So I'm wondering, and again, I'm going to go back to a song you released back in 2000. I guess it was early 08. But did you always have this texture, or is this something that developed over the years? Like if I were chatting with you 20 years ago, would you sound like this?
I've always had a raspy speaking voice. I think it just came from because I was always talking ever since I was a kid. And then as far as the singing, when I was a kid and I would listen to these different styles of music and I was always experimenting. Hey, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could do that. And I would just try things. And then I would figure out that this was something that I could do. And it's something I could turn on and off. I can sing, very clean classical music. I can also sing clean Broadway music. But when I want to bring that rasp and that pinch in, I can also turn it on full blown. Okay. And so, yeah.
The word for that is gifted.
Oh,
come on, Crystal, you're gifted. Okay. I'm going to play a song from back in the day. You
All
ready?
right.
Let's hear how.
Let's do it.
Wind blowing on my face, sidewalk flying beneath my bike. A 5-year-old's first taste of what freedom's really like. He was running right beside me, his hand holding on the seat. I took a deep breath and hollered as I headed for the street. You can let go now, Daddy. You can let go. Oh, I think I'm ready to do this on my own. It's still a little bit scary, but I want you to know I'll be okay now, Daddy. You can let go. I was standing at the altar between the two loves of
Is it sacrilegious if I fade this down? It's beautiful. People should check this out. You Can Let Go. Early 2008, I suppose, but this is your first single for
Yes.
RCA Nashville?
Yes.
Big hit for you.
It was. It was the first time an Indigenous artist went #1 in Canada and America on mainstream country music radio. And it was also, at that time, it was the fastest rising single since Carolyn Dawn Johnson. And I think within Canada, that record was just recently broken, but the record in America still hasn't been broken by a Canadian female Indigenous artist.
Well, congrats.
Thank you.
That's so more than that, okay? First Indigenous woman to appear in the top 20 on the American Billboard Country chart. First Indigenous woman to sell over 300,000 copies of your record. First Indigenous woman to sing at the Grand Ole Opry.
Yes.
Okay, you're tearing down the walls here. Okay, and then also first Indigenous woman to win the CCMA Female Artist of the Year award. You did that in 2009. First Indigenous woman to win a Juno Award for Blues Album of the Year. This is pretty recently, 2020.
Yes.
First Indigenous woman to appear in the top 10 of the American Billboard Blues charts. That was in 2022. Look at you. Okay, congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm hanging in there like a hair in a cheeseburger.
Okay, you've been in Nashville too long. Is that a Nashville? I feel like that's a Nashville thing.
It's a hillbilly thing. My husband is a hillbilly. That's one of his famous sayings.
Okay, is your husband from Nashville?
He's from Kentucky area, but he's been, hanging out in Nashville since he was a teenager. He started playing on the road with Mel McDaniel when he was like 16 years old, and Gary Stewart, and so he grew up there, and that's where we met, was in Nashville.
What does he play, an instrument? What is his forte?
He does. He plays guitar, and he's grown into my producer, my engineer, and
what's this guy's name?
Dwayne Strobel. I always say Dwayne Strobel. He's not only my lovely guitar player, but he's also my lovely husband, my baby daddy, my chauffeur, my chef, my scratch and post. Dwayne Strobel, ladies and gentlemen.
Crystal's lover.
Yes, he wears a lot of hats just to keep me happy.
Okay, and when did you meet this gentleman?
We met in 2003. We were both playing.
So before You Can Let, I just wanted to find out, is he pre You Can Let Go or post You Can Let Go?
He is pre, but he played guitar on the Dawn of a New, that whole album, that first country album, but he didn't produce it, though that was produced by Scott Hendricks. And so we were working with RCA at the time, and we were trying to be polite about everything and stay in our roles and our places. And so he was kind of more in the background than he is now. Now he like I said, he wears a lot of hats.
Dwayne Strobel, and he produced your newest album, right? Sing Pretty Blues?
That's right. He engineered, mixed it, and produced it.
Okay, this is a talented mofo you've got here.
He is.
Does he know how lucky he is?
I think so.
Okay, it's a mutual love affair.
He takes very good care of me and spoils me, and he lets me be the boss, so that's the most important thing.
So how does an Indigenous woman from Manitoulin Island end up signed to RCA Nashville back in 2007? Like, how did that happen?
Oh, a lot of hard work, determination, sacrifices. I first moved to Nashville when I was 16 years old, and I kind of went back and forth a couple times, kind of gave up and went home at one point because, I was too naive to be scared. So I went knocking on doors I had no right to knock on. And one day I got lucky, and this producer said, come on back to the office, play me a couple songs, and played him some songs. He said, you're an amazing singer, but, Native Americans within country music, I don't see that working, and I don't think the country music fan base is ready for you or would accept you. And so I gave up. I went home. I went down a self-destructive path, and no matter what, I ended up back on a stage and back in front of a microphone. So I went back to Nashville, and this time it was not to get a record deal. It was just because I'm a singer. That's who I am. And I started playing clubs, particularly Tootsie's world famous Orchid Lounge down on Broadway.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, it was the Purple Prison. It's a big purple bar, and I called it the Purple Prison because we were working 3 to 4 shifts a day, 6 days a week, and each shift is like 4 hours, and we were just down there all the time, and we built up a buzz. And next thing you know, I had songwriters, producers, and managers and record labels courting me, and I basically had my pick. And I picked RCA Records because that was the home of Elvis Presley. And
that'll do it.
Yeah, that was enough for me. It was like, if I could just work with this label and learn from the best of the best in the business, then, it doesn't really matter what happens after that.
So back then, Crystal, when one of these A&R, I don't know, these record guys or whatever, they call you Native American, do you correct them?
Well, this was back it was the 90s. So back then we were still Native American. So
even up here in Canada.
Yes. So we didn't become the word Indigenous till like in the past 10 years.
Okay, see, I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't bother correcting people, though, because, I know who I am. You know who I am. There's, sometimes people are not aware of, like if it keeps changing, sometimes it's hard for people to keep track. And so, I allow for some grace and understanding. I just, like Indigenous, and then they catch on, and then they say Indigenous as well. But,
right.
For me, I'm Anishinaabe. That's who I am. So, but I'm not going to expect anybody to know that, everybody to know that.
Okay, I will say that if someone, again, what do I know, but Native American, I'd be like, well, actually, I'm Native Canadian.
Right. A little confusion there when they would say Native American, but I was from Canada. So.
Right, I go, Manitoulin Island is in Canada. But that was back in the good old days when they didn't know we existed.
Right.
And the days I long for again. But,
Right.
just forget we're up here. And they probably, I'm going to guess country music fans just assume you're American and from Nashville at this point.
Yeah, a lot of it, yeah, for sure. You know, so when I used to play down at Tootsie's, sometimes I would, you know, people would come up to me and they'd be like, "What are you?" And I would tell them, you know, again, it was the 90s, so I would tell them, "I'm Native American." They're like, "What's that?" There was actually some people who didn't know what that was. And I was like, I was like, well, you know, like cowboys and Indians, like, whoa, and that was the only reference that I could give to them for them to,
Sitting Bull or
and
something.
I usually have some people would say, like, I thought you guys were all gone. Nope, right here.
That makes me sad, to be quite honest.
It was sad, you know. So I was, you know, for a lot of people, I was the first time that they'd ever been around one, and so it was kind of strange. But I'm always happy to educate and catch people up to date.
Well, you're in that particular genre. Country music is kind of infamous for it's not the most welcoming collective for people of color.
No, not always. You know, there was actually times where when I did my radio tour, where I would show up and they would be like, "Oh, I thought you just had a really good tan."
Well, that leads to a question I have for you. I feel now we have a rapport. I need to ask you for your thoughts because of your perspective will be very important to me. But what are your thoughts on what we've learned about Buffy St. Marie?
You know, it's been really difficult, you know, because I knew Buffy ever since I was a little kid. I first met her when I was like 11 years old. She came and played a festival in my community. And that was the first time I became aware of her because my parents didn't play her music. So I didn't even know who she was when she came to our community. But after that, you know, the lady putting on the festival explained who she was and what she had done and all the, you know, activism she did. And I thought that was incredible. So I started following her. And over the years, we would cross paths at award shows. And she was always very encouraging and always very sweet to me. And then, you know, reading her book, her autobiography, I was just like, I cried so many times because it was the first time where I felt like somebody had experienced, even though everything came out the way it did, in her book and at her time back in the day, she had so many of the same experiences of, you know, which is, you know, racism in the music business. And I felt seen and heard for the first time. And so when it all came out, I didn't know how to feel, you know. I was in shock, you know, and I didn't want to say anything or come to any conclusion until I heard a report from her, like, well, what's her reply? Let's give her a chance to explain her story, you know, because people can pick pieces of a story, but there's always that other point of view of what it's like to be in that position. And no answer ever came. So to this day, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for a reply and a public acknowledgement of, you know, what was dug up, all the information. And you know, I'm one of those people, I got to hear all the sides of it before I come to a real decision or how I feel. But, you know, it's been a while. So, you know, I'm a little disappointed that I didn't. I mean, she doesn't know anybody or me anything, but it just would have been nice because I'm like I said, I've been a fan since I was a kid, and it's one of those things. I'm still waiting, but it is. I was in shock about it for a long time because I kept waiting and waiting. You know, I would love to hear your side of the story, is how I felt, and it just never came. And so, you know, at this point, I just try to move forward, and you know. It's unfortunate because it hurt a lot of people. It hurt a lot of people's feelings, and broke a lot of hearts, and as well as mine. You know, because this is somebody that I feel like did a lot of, you know, great things for the Indigenous community, raised a lot of awareness about issues that we deal with, and so, you know, like I said, I'm still waiting. But at this point, you know, it definitely, it's sad. Is what it is. It's sad.
Well, I appreciate your candor, and I feel for you because I am not an Indigenous person, but I also yearn for an acknowledgement and an apology because she misled us.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and that's what I kept trying to say. Like when it first all happened, people are like, "Well, what do you think of this? What's
Sure.
your thoughts on it?" And when I tried to say, "Well, I'm trying to wait for her side of the story," and I actually had some people almost turn on me, and they were like, "Well, maybe you're a pretendian too," and I was like, you know, you want to see my quantum letter? It goes back for hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, come at me, bro. You know, I ain't afraid.
You're no pretendian, Crystal.
No. As soon as you ride onto my reservation, there's a great big sign that says "Welcome to the home of Crystal Shawanda."
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So you know, I'm good. I ain't scared.
You're good. And one more thought here. I'm going to play another song where I feel very, it's very Joplin-esque, and then we're going to get to the new stuff. But Gord Downie, one of my favorite musicians of all time. I'm a big Tragically Hip fan. And at the end of his life, he spent a lot of time and energy on the Secret Path project. And I'm wondering your thoughts on that effort from Gord Downie. And does it matter to you that Gord Downie is a white guy like me?
Oh no, of course. You know, allies are so very important. We need allies. We need them in our life. It's so important. And I thought it was really beautiful, all that work that he did before he went. You know, I think, you know, as much as he created all this great music, but he wanted something even more meaningful to leave behind. He wanted to make an even bigger impact. And you know, and I just thought that was amazing. You know, a lot of people, Indigenous people, appreciated it. I did. And, you know, growing up as a kid, as a huge, you know, my teenage years, like all his music took me back. You know, I grew up on it, you know, and so to have somebody that I looked up to and admired and to, you know, be a voice and give us a voice was really special, and it meant a lot to me.
Oh, glad to hear it. Did you have a favorite Tragically Hip song?
Yes, New Orleans is sinking.
And I don't want to swim.
Yeah, I love that song forever. And I remember sitting around at, you know, bonfire parties back home on the res, or cruising around in my old red truck, and I had these great big subwoofers in my truck, and I would just crank it. Like, people would hear me 10 minutes before I get there.
It's so good, right? Because that bluesy, because you got that bluesy vibe going, that bluesy rocker. That's the second hip song I ever heard.
And that's what I feel like. That song had a lot of bluesy undertones.
Yeah, big time.
And so I always had a dream of, since I was a teenager, of someday I'm going to do that song, and I'm going to really exaggerate all those bluesy undertones. And then so I brought the idea to my husband, my producer, and he loved it, and we just rolled with it. And the whole band, I played the idea for them in the studio. We actually didn't let them hear the original, because we didn't want them to get stuck on the idea of trying to recreate the original. Right. Because,
smart,
you know, we that was the whole point, is I wanted, here's how they influenced me, and here's what I've become.
So amazing. I mean, geez, what a song. Now it's in my head, but looked up to the Lord above and said, hey man, thanks.
Thanks, yeah.
Okay, we can do a duet. I know you're hearing my voice in the headphones. You're thinking, how do I duet with Toronto Mike? Catbird can broker that deal. Okay, Catbird, how is your logger? Good?
It's awesome. Thank you very much.
Hitting the spot.
Is that Catbird's natural hair color? What do you think?
It is.
It is?
Yeah.
Amazing. I can't believe it. Okay, Catbird. When I first said, oh, that's not a real name. And then you're like, yeah, that's a real name. That's a mind-blowing. Crystal? Is Crystal a real name?
Yes, it is my real name.
Please produce your birth certificate
Is
for me.
Mike a real name?
She's saying, is Mike a real name?
Right.
I'll never tell.
We'll never know.
Never tell. Like, I heard my roots are showing.
Oh, yes.
My roots are showing. I'm not going to reveal
there you go.
if it's a. By the way, just before we leave, you can let go. It went to number 1 on the Canadian Country Album Chart. I think you mentioned that. But and number 16 on the Billboard Top Country Albums. Like, what a monster hit right out of the gate.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a beautiful blur. I was all over the place. I got to play stadiums and arenas all over Canada and America with Reba and Brad Paisley. I shared the stage with the Eagles, Taylor Swift. I played
T-Swizzle.
Yeah, that's
my
right.
9-year-old's gonna go nuts.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, she was amazing.
Oh, who's phoning me? I think that's T-Swizzle. Okay, please continue. So I'm gonna turn off my ringer. That's rude. That's rude.
We actually played Stagecoach together. So it was me, Taylor Swift, the Judds, and the Eagles on the last part of the day. So.
I hope you were the headliner.
No, but the Eagles were the headliner, and you know, that was one of those moments, some surreal moments of standing there watching the pink sky and watching the Eagles play, standing there with my band, looking like, how did I get here? You know
what you say to yourself? Hell is frozen over. That's what you say when you're
real.
witnessing that.
For real. But it was a beautiful blur, and
A beautiful blur, but why do you leave the label? I mean, you wanted to create your own. Is that the deal? New Sun Records?
Well, it started out, when streaming started happening, it changed the music industry. And at that time, RCA Records had laid off over 250 people on their staff. Whoa. And suddenly, all the people who were around me who created the album and the sound, all of a sudden, they were all gone. And it was all new people. And the head of the label brought me in his office, and I had a meeting with him and one of the head A&R people, and they said, we're on our way out. The head of the label was retiring, and he said, there's a good chance they might stick you on the shelf because the label is going to want to work artists that they discovered, not ones that were already there.
Oh.
And so I made the crazy decision to branch off and start my own label. And it was funny, when I walked out of the meeting, my husband was like, what happened? And I told him, and he was like, are you okay? Like, because I wasn't crying or anything. I was like, yeah, I think so. I said, you know what? I think we should start our own label. And then that was the birth of New Sun Records in 2010. And
your first release is I'll Be Home for Christmas.
Yeah, we started off with because it was fall and it was just about to be Christmas. I said, let's keep the ball rolling and keep the fires burning. And so we put out a Christmas album just to feed the fans. And and then we just kept rolling. Then we released Just Like You, that album, and it won a Juno Award.
Where's your Juno today?
It's on my mantle at home. I used to keep all my awards like on a back shelf in the back office, and then I had a friend one time, visit asking me, where do you keep your awards? And I told him, and he was like, why are you doing that? Bring them out. You should be proud.
Because if he didn't say it, I was going to say it. Okay? He's like stealing my thunder.
I learned to be proud. He's like, there's a lot of people who would love to have those awards and who don't have them. And so, you should acknowledge where you've been and celebrate.
Be proud.
Yeah, for sure. So now I'm proud.
Glad to hear it. Do you know the name Blair Packham?
I don't know.
So Blair Packham, he was the founder, lead guy for the Jitters, which is probably before your time because you're born in the 80s. But I can tell you, yesterday he was my guest here.
Oh, nice.
And he's got some new material. And I said, I always promote who's next on the program. And he said I was going to love you. And I just want to tell Blair, if he's listening at home, that, Blair, you're correct. I do love Crystal.
That's awesome.
So Blair's a big fan. Okay.
That's awesome.
I'm going to play a bit of this song just to give us a taste of your vocals. This is not the new stuff yet. But then I'm going to give you some gifts for being here, Crystal. And then we're going to talk about the new music. You psyched?
Awesome.
All right.
Sounds good.
Sitting by my window, and I was looking out at the rain. Sitting by my window, and I was looking out at the something struck me and climbed on me, just like a ball and chain. And I said, oh, baby, why you wanna do all these mean things to me?
Crystal, what are we listening to here?
Oh, that's my cover of Ball and Chain, which was originally recorded by Big Mama Thornton and then later covered by Janis Joplin.
I felt like I needed to like just show how Joplin-esque your vocals can be. So I grabbed this one because what amazing vocals.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We actually recorded that one live off the floor in one take, and we wanted to do an album that would give fans that live feeling, because a lot of fans would tell us, like, we love your records, but I wish they sounded more like your live shows. And so, so that's what we did. We did that whole Voodoo Woman album live off the floor.
And you can, Big Mama Thornton also wrote Hound Dog, but
That's right, absolutely.
A little known ditty.
For sure. I grew up loving Big Mama Thornton because she had this big, powerful voice, and she was a strong woman, and she didn't take no crap from nobody, and she taught me to do the same. And then, and it's funny, when I was maybe 13, people always used to say, you sound very Janis Joplin. And I didn't grow up listening to Janis Joplin until people kept pointing that out.
You said, I got to get Pearl.
And then, so I went and looked it up. I was like, I've heard her name before, but just nobody in my family listened to her. And then, so that's when I started digging up her music, and I was like, oh, okay, I get the reference,
I'm buds with a guy named Bill King, great pianist.
Nice.
And he played with Janis.
Wow, that's
So
very
I hit him
cool.
up for all my Janis stories.
That's so cool.
Man, so cool. What's cool is, okay, so I'm going to run down the swag you're getting for making the trek, because you did drive all the way from Nashville.
We did, all the
Okay,
way from
so
Nashville, Tennessee.
Do you enjoy Italian food?
I do. It's actually my favorite.
I have just delivered today. It's in my freezer. I have a large lasagna for you from Palma Pasta. They're not in Nashville, unfortunately. They're in Mississauga and Oakville.
Nice.
I feel like Catbird, it's worth the drive for Catbird to check out Palma Pasta. Go to palmapasta.com. So they've sent over lasagna for you, and I will let the listenership know that Palma Pasta will feed us at TMLX 18 on June 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Great Lakes Brewery, which is here in South Etobicoke at 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard near Royal York and Queensway. And, of course, we're already enjoying our Great Lakes beer. Ridley Funeral Home. Hold on. You can take us home. That's live on the floor? There's a series on Netflix called Adolescence. I don't know if you've caught this.
I haven't seen it
4
yet fully
episodes, but what's remarkable is every episode is one take. One
okay,
uninterrupted
I saw
take.
that. That's why I saw the description of it. I was like, wow, that's going to be interesting.
And it's amazing, actually. You can't believe it till you see it. But I'd say they got nothing on you. Okay?
Oh, thank
Come on,
you.
one take, Crystal. Ridley Funeral Home has sent over it's a measuring tape for you,
Oh, I
Crystal.
love this.
Handy you never know if you have to measure something. Stick that in the purse.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm always measuring stuff.
You're always measuring things.
I am.
I don't need to know anymore. I don't need to know what you're measuring.
Everywhere
That's,
I go. But I know my daughter is going to steal this from me.
Well, because your daughter is American, is that right?
Yeah, well, she's like me. She's dual citizen.
Okay.
So she's,
But inches or centimeters for your daughter? Okay. Did you train her properly? This is a centimeter world.
I'm teaching her
No
both.
comment.
I'm teaching her both.
Okay, you just reminded me. You know what? I forgot. You homeschool your child.
I do. I homeschool my daughter. She goes with us. We never leave home without her. So she's growing up in the recording studios.
Well, you're not home right now, and I don't see her anywhere.
No, we're only not too far away from Manitoulin Island, so my parents drove up to visit us, and so they're hanging out at the hotel with her mama and papa. She's hanging out with her mama and papa today.
Okay, I was going to call you out on your lie there, that you don't leave home without her, unless she's hiding in that purse somewhere. But so why did you choose to homeschool your daughter?
Because we're always on the road. We're always gone. We're never home. So if I didn't bring her with us, we would miss everything. And I don't want to miss anything. So she's grown up on stages on the road, and she actually joins us for our live shows now. And we still do the song "You Can Let Go," and she actually sings it with me. I sing the verses and she does the choruses. And my fans who've been with me since 2008, they just love it. They love to hear her sing it with me. And, it's a special, we have a full band show, but the band will take a break on that song. And then it's just usually me, her, and my husband who do the song. And it's, a lot of the fans really love it. It's a special moment.
Amazing. I just want to make sure that you're teaching her the metric system.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. In this time and age, it's very important to
It's
me.
very
Okay, I'm very
important.
passionate about this. Okay. Quickly, I want to give you...
All right.
Actually, there might be one. Is there one up there? Oh, there is one. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm giving you a wireless speaker. Hey, I'm giving Cat Bird one too. Cat. That's a quality. I just like Cat. I don't know what to say. I like people named Cat Bird. Okay. That's a quality speaker from Inaris, because with that speaker, you're going to listen to Yes, We Are Open, which is an award-winning podcast from Inaris hosted by Al Grego. And Al went to Saskatchewan, and he's been chatting up small business owners in Regina. Have you ever been in Regina?
I have.
Do you remember where you played in? You probably played in Regina, right? Do you remember where you played?
Yeah, different places. I played, actually, I think one of my first CCMA experiences was there in Regina, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it was, because I remember everybody making a joke out of... Never mind.
Well, out of what? Like, out of what? Regina and how it sounds like vagina? That's very immature of you, Crystal.
It was not me.
It wasn't you.
It was everybody at Sony
I have been
Music.
showing great restraint, okay? I've been doing this Moneris shout out to Regina all month, and I've yet to make a vagina joke.
Oh,
even though it crosses my mind every time. I'm trying to show some maturity here.
Well,
Crystal.
it's a wonderful city, and I have a faint memory of us trying to hit up the McDonald's in a limousine, and everybody making a joke about where we were at. And,
well, you can't help it, right?
Yeah, blurred memories for various reasons.
Well, Kevin Toth is the president of Prairie Flying Service, and he was chatting with Al about the storied history and rich legacy of the company, which began in 1946, founded by 4 World War II pilots. So listen to Yes, We Are Open. Season 8 is dropping now.
Awesome.
There's a new podcast I recorded this morning. It's for Nick Iones, and the podcast is called Building Toronto Skyline, and it's all about the CN Tower, which turns 50. It's 50 years old now, and it's
amazing.
We talked to a guy who worked on building the CN Tower 50 years ago.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is amazing. And I urge people to subscribe to Building Toronto Skyline. Thank you, Nick Iones. I would like to thank, I want to make sure I don't miss anybody, but Silver Wax is the newest, the freshest sponsor of Toronto Mic'd. Silver Wax makes pro-grade auto care and cleaning technology easy for everyone to use. They have kits for beginners, experts, or professionals. Everything you need. People can go to silverwax.ca and use the promo code TorontoMike10 at checkout. You save 10%. Silver Wax is proudly Canadian, just like you, Crystal.
Awesome.
And I can't believe it, because I have one of the best kits they sell at silverwax.ca. This whole bucket, and I don't know if that's going back to Nashville. I don't know. You maybe Cat Bird and you share it. I don't know. But that bucket with these 2 spray bottles, you can detail the interior and exterior of your automobile, your trailer, your boat, whatever, your bike. That's what I'm going to use it for. Just you're going to be like, wow, Silver Wax does the job, and everybody can again go to silverwax.ca. I am going to do one last piece of love, and of course, it is for recyclemyelectronics.ca, because if you go to recyclemyelectronics.ca and you put in your postal code, this will not work in Nashville, but Cat Bird can do this. In the Hammer, put in your postal code and find out where you drop off your old cables, your old electronics, your old devices, and then it can be properly recycled instead of those chemicals ending up in our landfill. You got it, Cat Bird? I got it. She's got it. Okay. Can I play some new music?
Yes, that would be amazing.
There you go, baby, with another girl, making it all look so real. You held her love in the palm of your hand, but do you really know just how it feels? Would you know, love, if it knocked on your door? Would you leave it closed just like you did before? Would you know, love, if it looked
know Rolling Stones' Gimme Shelter? You know the Mary Clayton part?
Yeah.
You know when her voice does that hitch?
Yes.
You ever worry that's going to happen to you? No.
I just keep on going, doing my thing.
Okay, wow. Okay, so the new album is called Sing Pretty Blues, and it's available today. We're
Yes,
recording
it
this,
is.
and I dropped these right away. This is Friday, April 11th. This will drop before you get to your next destination because I'm not going to edit a stitch of this. It's all gold. People can get this new album today. Tell me about Sing Pretty Blues. This is the first single.
Yeah, this was the first single off the album, and you know this. The title of the title track, "Sing Pretty Blues," was actually inspired by a conversation I had with a photographer. I was coming off stage after a show, and he was like, "Hey, Crystal, great show. You sounded amazing as always. I think I got some good shots, but I don't know. You don't sing pretty." He said, "So it's hard to get a good picture sometimes." I was like, "What's that supposed to mean?" I could have got offended, but instead I decided
You don't sing pretty.
Right. I decided to take it as a compliment because he's right. I don't sing pretty. I sing really hard. I scrunch up my face. I don't really care what I look like. I'm trying to get all this stuff that's weighing me down, releasing it into the universe because I mean every word of it, and I want the fans and the crowd to know and the fans listening to the record to know that I've lived these words, every word on this album, and I know what it's like, and I've made it through it, and if you're gonna make it through it too, and it's, for me, music has always been cheap therapy, and healing isn't always pretty, and this whole album, it's been 3 years since my last album, and so this album has a lot of life and reflection of it, and it's the journey of life is not always pretty, so that's the Sing Pretty Blues.
And how was the album release show at the Lula Lounge yesterday?
It was amazing. There was a lot of friends and family, and when I say friends, I mean my fans, because a lot of the fans that were there last night have been with me since the very beginning, like since 2008, and it's incredible to see them still coming to my shows, and they've been a part of my journey, all the changes from country to blues, and having my baby and watching her grow up. And now when they come to see me, they bring, Easter baskets for my baby and Christmas presents for my daughter. And, and it's really incredible, like they say it takes a village, but to be honest, we don't really have a village. It's me and my husband and my parents, and that's pretty much it. She has 2 wonderful uncles, but she doesn't get to see them that often, and so we have this big community of fans who are watching her grow up, and I feel like they genuinely love her, and they show her love, and I'm really grateful for that.
What's Would You Know Love, the song we're listening to right now? What's that about?
The song is all about, like it's calling somebody out, like, would you know love? Because sometimes in this life, people get burned so many times that they become weary and of love, and sometimes people call it quits way too soon, way too easy. People get in a little fight and then they break up, and and sometimes you got to stick it out. Obviously, if it's not a healthy situation, don't stick around. But if it's just because you have different interests or different tastes, or you come from different worlds, like sometimes it's great to learn a new POV. So this song's about, when I sing it, it makes me think of all the people who wouldn't be in my life, not just my husband, but people who I've worked with, friends, recently my longtime agent and manager, Rob Patty, passed away last year, and he was with us. Thank you. He was with us for 14 years, and that's a lifetime in the music business. And when I started working with him was right after I got out of working with Doc McGee, and which was, an experience. And
sounds like there's a whole episode right there.
It's a whole episode.
That's the real talk. Next, part 2.
So I was weary. I was scared, and I gave Rob a chance, and he became our friend beyond being a manager and agent. He became our friend, and he mentored us and guided us and was so patient in teaching us. And he wasn't just our manager and agent. He was someone to dream with. So when this song, I get very emotional because I think, like, wow, I would have missed out on that whole 14 years if I didn't just, and because there's all kinds of love, and we loved him very much. So it's one of those things, it's like, that's what I think about when I sing that song, is what I would have missed out on.
Well, I'm going to just piggyback on that sad sentiment there as you remember somebody you cared about, to say that I learned yesterday that, so FOTM means friend of Toronto Mic'd. Okay, when you come on Toronto Mic'd, you become an FOTM. Crystal, you're now an FOTM.
Yes.
Welcome to the club. A fellow FOTM is a longtime A&R guy whose name was Mark. And Mark came on because he's the guy who introduced the Bare Naked Ladies to Seymour Stein at Sire. His name's Mark Nathan. He discovered, do you remember Con-Can?
Yes.
Okay. He basically discovered them and got them their record deal. And Maren Cadell, do you remember this name, the Sweater song?
Yeah, the Sweater song.
So he discovered him, and we had a great chat about it a few years ago. And then yesterday I learned Mark Nathan passed away. He died at the age of 70. So the listenership should be aware that there will be a tribute to Mark Nathan dropping in the Toronto Mic'd feed tomorrow, which is Saturday. So listen for that on April 12. Mark Nathan gone too soon. He actually always, when I chatted with him, he had I think his kidneys were failing, and he had diabetes, and he had some health concerns. But he always seemed to overcome these concerns, and then it finally caught up to him, and we lost Mark Nathan. So I just wanted to take a moment to remember a great FOTM who I loved my conversation with Mark, and again, we'll remember him in the next episode of Toronto Mic'd. Now, Crystal, I know I only played the 3 songs, but, that first song, it sounds like you're embedded in Nashville as a country music superstar. But as I listen, it gets bluesier and poppier, and it doesn't sound like country at all.
No,
There's no country left. What's going on?
No, there is a couple on this new album. There is a couple songs called Too Far to Turn Around and Dirty, and I've actually been carrying those songs around since I recorded my first album, Dawn of a New Day. They were Too Far to Turn Around was actually written by Corey Mayo and Gretchen Wilson, and they pitched this song to me, and I fell in love with it, but the record label wouldn't let me record it because it didn't fit the brand or the image they were going for.
Stop trying to control Crystal. This is why you had to go out on your own and create your own
Exactly. It's artistry, So I've been carrying this song for a long time, and I switched to blues several years ago because everybody at radio kept saying, you sound really blues. And, at that time when I left country music, it was about 2015, country music radio became very poppy, and everybody was using, synthesizers and the big bass and all that, and it's just not what I was, nothing against.
Sound like Florida Georgia line, and
stuff like that.
It was like a hip hop blend almost.
It was. So, and it's just, and nothing against it, but it's just not what I wanted to do, So that's what I branched out. I listened to everybody who was giving me input, and I said, okay, well, since I have my own label, I'll record a blues album. And then I did it, and it was like letting a bird out of a cage. I felt free. I felt like I could sing anything I wanted, all the things that I really wanted to sing. Because when I recorded that first Dawn of a New Day album, and I recorded You Can Let Go, my producer was very conscious of it constantly. He was always reeling me back. He's like, okay, let's bring it down a little bit. He was always kind of shrinking me down. He'd be like, we don't want to scare away the country music fan base. So less grit, less growl. Don't sing too many high notes, too many embellishes, too many runs, and
Jeez.
And so
no wonder I don't like country music. I'm sorry. I said it out loud. Sorry, I should have just thought that.
For me, swinging blues music was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And then I came, really determined to prove how blues I am, and I'm not country anymore. But then I missed parts of that country soul that I have. And so on this new album, it's definitely a blues album, but there's also a lot of country soul as well.
Okay, I wondered, just because you are not a you're not a white person, Crystal. Like in country music, we said it off the top, it can be very difficult for non-white people in country. This is what I understand.
For sure.
I'm never been in country music, as you might. I loved Kenny Rogers though as a kid. I'm just throwing it out there. My mom played a lot of Kenny Rogers.
Yes, my mom did too. She loved Kenny Rogers.
All moms love Kenny Rogers. Is that correct?
They do. They just do. Something about him.
Something about that wonderful man, the late great Kenny Rogers.
For sure.
But did you experience any racism in your the country music chapter of your career?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes, like I said, I would show up to radio stations, and I remember one time, and sometimes it wasn't like mean racism. Sometimes it was just like plain ignorance. Like I remember one time doing an interview, and the DJ was like, "Oh, I was half expecting your hair to be blowing in the wind like Jim Redcorn on King of the Hill."
I am a King of the Hill fan. That boy ain't right.
And exactly. My husband always says that. He says, "Why do you sound like Bobby Hill?"
And Bobby's voice is a woman. So.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, then that would make sense.
Pamela Adlon, I believe is her name.
Oh, that's so funny. But yeah, that's where that, sometimes I'll experience that. And then sometimes
They want feathers in your hair?
I think sometimes they would expect that. And and sometimes it was mean, but it was very subtle, sometimes people are sometimes very good about hiding their racism, but they let you know, but the rest of the room may not know. And
we live in an era where the president of the United States, and I won't get you in trouble because I know you have dual citizen, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, they can't stop you from going home. That's the good news there.
For now.
But he does for some, Elizabeth Warren, he adopted the nickname Pocahontas.
Yeah.
So we sort of have this casual racism towards Indigenous people from the highest office.
Right. We were making so much progress. It was getting so good, and there had been so much, more representation than ever, like the Indigenous people in big movies and TV shows, having their own successful hit series, winning awards at the Oscars, at the Emmys, and the music world, and then all of a sudden we just hit this wall, and it feels like we've gone back like 20 years, and it's wild, it's crazy, and it's given, I'm not a politician, but what I do notice is that it's almost like it's given people permission to be, to not hide their racism.
Yeah,
and
no,
so
that's how I feel too.
I've lived in Nashville for 21 years, and I've never had an overtly racist experience. Sometimes people just act like they just don't like you. And until recently, this past year, I went to a Walmart and was buying my little girl a bike, and a guy followed me out and started yelling very horrible things that I'm not going to repeat here. And somehow he knew where I was from. Like he made a reference to Canadian Indian, and then he added a lot of insults along with that. And I was like,
That's scary.
It was very scary because he followed me and my husband right out to our car, and he got in his truck and pulled up and started yelling things out the window, and what he saw us with our daughter pushing a bike, and this guy didn't
That's horrible.
care. So I've been kind of avoiding Walmart in the South recently.
But yeah, I think that you're right about the fact that it seems to be emboldened.
Yes.
So this may have been something people felt, but they had, I don't know, some sense of, oh, I'll keep this to myself, or for me and my buds at the Dunkin' Donuts or something. But
for sure,
now it seems to be emboldened. Like it's okay, I feel this way, and I can express it, and that's horrific.
It is, because it's like, if you want to vote for this person because of their policies, then let that be it. But when you start doing things like that, that makes me think otherwise. Maybe you're not voting for him because of the policies like you say you are. And, but it's one of those things, like I'm not a politician, I'm an artist. And so my job is I write and I sing and I try to heal people's hearts and spirits and, and try to stay in a positive light, and things I've been saying to my fan base, because I'm not going to tell anybody what to think. That's not my place, or what to believe. So what I say is just remember, no matter what side you're on, whatever you believe, nobody can control what's in our minds, our hearts, and our homes. You get to decide that.
And that's a beautiful sentiment.
Yeah, because there's so much out of our control these days, because even when you go to vote, sometimes things don't go the way you want them to, So that's why I say there's so many things that are out of our hands, but what's in our mind, our hearts, and our homes is in our hands.
Okay, last political question before I let you off the hook here, which is that you are a dual citizen, but you're born and raised in Canada. And I'm wondering, what is it like for you? I mean, you live in Tennessee. I'm sure you're hearing like 51st state rhetoric. I'm sure it must be out there in the atmosphere. Like, what is it like as a Canadian woman?
It's, it's strange. When it first all started coming out, I honestly, I was staying home a little bit because I was a little worried, because I heard about people actually Mexican people who are like somebody tried to run over a Mexican down the
Oh,
road,
geez.
and you know, we have a very large Mexican community in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's beautiful. There's one part of town, Nolansville Road it's called, and they have like Little Mexico, and I go shop there all the time, and I feel at home when I'm there, and so it's sad to see, you know, it's very sad, and but for myself, you know, I try to just focus on the music, focus on the good, and I do my part as a human being to treat other human beings the way I want to be treated, you know, and that's all we can do at this point. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And, you know, I express that I am a dual citizen. My grandpa flew both a Canadian flag and an American flag in his front yard my whole life. And my dad always expressed that to me and my brothers, that, you know, this is your right to live and work in both countries. And my family has always exercised that. My aunts, my uncles, my parents. We started going to Michigan when I was a little kid for cherry picking every summer. So it's always been a big part of my life. You know, America, Canada, for us, there was no border. It was all home to us.
Well, goodness gracious. When are you going home?
I am heading back to Nashville on Monday. I have Blues in Schools presentations down in Windsor, and so after that we'll continue
And you were just in Windsor at the Canada South Blues Society.
We were down there doing Blues in Schools presentations. That's something that I do on my time off when I'm not doing live shows. I visit the schools and we talk about history and blues music, and then I talk to the kids about how blues music was created by a bullied people. So I keep my focus on bullying and how that affects kids today, and how I was bullied growing up, and how music can be a friend to you and help heal you through those troubling times. And we get the kids to sing along with us, and they love my daughter. My daughter's our secret weapon. When I ask them to sing with me, they're like, meh, meh, meh. You know, then I bring her out and they're like,
right.
And they're like chasing her after the show, asking her to sign their arms and their shirts. And it's pretty cool.
Well, the good news is you're back in Ontario in June, because June 18, you're at Rama Casino. That's in Aurelia, of course. So you're back here in June, and then you're going off to the west coast of this fine country. I see here you're visiting Brother Bill in White Rock. Okay, shout out to Brother Bill. You're at the Blue Frog. Then you're
yes, I love the Blue Frog.
Yeah, and then Namo, you're at the Queens and Blues and Roots Expo, and then you're in Nanoose Bay, which I'll pretend I've heard of that. That sounds like a wonderful place. In Parkersville, Victoria, I've been there. And
it was just announced today I'll be playing in Thunder Bay with the Black Eyed Peas for their big festival. So,
really?
Yeah, so it's very exciting. Lots of stuff going on this summer. And there's a few festivals and some shows that I can't announce yet because I have to wait for them to announce it. But some really big festivals.
But you'll be here all summer,
and I'll
it looks
actually
like.
be headlining a couple of them, so I'm really
good
excited.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Listen, Crystal, what a pleasure it was to get to know you and to discover this. You know, the country music, I don't listen to a lot of country, but I'm telling you, the bluesy rockers you're kicking out, I'm loving it so much. And this new album is out now. People can get it. And of course, Crystal Shawanda 3.bandzoogle.com is a place you can go to pick up the new album, Sing Pretty Blues. Did you have a good time?
I had the best time. Thank you.
Okay, we still haven't had our Toronto tree photo yet, so I got to get the lasagna out of the freezer and then get that photo with you. But thanks so much for dropping by. This was amazing.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,670th show, 1670. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs, whatever the hell those are. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. I enjoyed my burst. I've got some beer for you to take home.
All right.
Watch out. Catbird's got her eyes on it. So you watch out there.
She's going to try to take it from me.
Palma Pasta, Moneris, Silver Wax, RecycleMyElectronics.ca, Building Toronto Skyline, and Ridley Funeral Home. We just dropped a new episode of Life's Undertaking with Brad Jones, so subscribe and enjoy that. I mentioned Mark Nathan. I'm going to drop a tribute to him tomorrow, but the next live guest on this program is Gord Miller, NHL play-by-play guy. He's dropping by Monday, so I will see you all then.